Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Sports Matter podcast. My name is Gianna Castro, and I'm your host. Today, we're going to be talking about women's sports, like I always do. I am totally not recording this last minute, a few hours before this stuff goes up. I definitely am, for sure, last minute. But I do want to talk about Connecticut and the South Carolina game last night because even though I wasn't able to watch it, I was scrolling through Twitter during the game and I realized how big of a deal this was, especially since UConn came out with a win against South Carolina. And I wanted to talk about that and the future of the WNBA, not for a long time, maybe for 15-20 minutes. This is definitely going to be one of my shorter episodes this season. But with that being said, we get to go to a little commercial break before we start. Of course, today's sponsor, Anchor. Thank you, Anchor, for sponsoring today's episodes and all of my episodes so far in my podcasting career. Speaking of this podcast, by the way, again, like I said in other episodes, I'm kind of leaning towards the season ending around the end of February, early March, only because that's when all of my classes have started by then. And again, like I said before, I'm a freshman in college. I'm trying to get those good grades, trying to transfer out of my current school to go to a bigger school and everything like that. So, yeah. So let's head to that commercial break about Anchor, and let's get started with today's episode. Hey everyone, it's Gianna Castro from the Women's Sports Matter podcast, and today I'm going to be discussing the sponsor of this show, Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. I just love my ad reads. And if you are listeners and you're complaining, you like regular listeners, and you are complaining every time I talk about how amazing my ad read is, I truly mean it at this moment that it is amazing. Because it is. What's not to like? I mean, I'm just too good at reading things and then doing it in a funky voice. Because there's talking normally and then being like, so, on today's episode, we are going right into it. Or whatever. I don't know. I'm really tired. It's too early in the morning for me. I should be asleep still. Whatever. So, yesterday's UConn South Carolina game ended in overtime with the final score being 63-59, leaving the number one South Carolina Gamecocks 15-2 instead of 16-1. And number 2, Connecticut Huskies 14-1. I think we have a new number 1 team, the UConn Huskies. I love Dawn Staley, and she's done so much for South Carolina, but UConn is still here to play. And the one reason I believe that is why this is still a thing with UConn is because of Paige Bueckers. Paige is my age. Wow, that rhymes. And she's killing it at UConn. She's breaking so many records in UConn history for freshmen, set by none other than Breanna Stewart, who is also taking over in the WNBA, winning Finals MVP last season in the WNBA. Also, if you know a little bit about UConn history, Breanna Stewart won 4 championships in a row her freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year while at UConn. I believe this was a stretch between 2013 to 2016. 2013, 2014, yeah. Had to count it out real quick. And they're so amazing. The team obviously has had its downfalls, but when we talk about greatest programs for women's basketball, UConn is always going to be the number one, in my opinion. We also, of course, now have South Carolina to be added to that, along with Oregon. And what other schools belong in that? I think Baylor is also up there, along with why am I blanking? Notre Dame, UConn, South Carolina, Notre Dame, Baylor, Oregon, Arizona, possibly. Just these schools produce so much talent. And it's amazing. But also, look out for schools like Iowa and Oregon State, NC State, what other schools? Northwestern, Michigan, Minnesota, some schools that may only have one or two draft picks per year, or maybe people that go undrafted and still make it big in the league. Those schools are also they could be ranked, they could not be ranked depending on the year and who is playing. I'm just going to do a quick little check here. UCLA is also a good school. Why did I forget Stanford? That is my bad. My apologies. What other schools? Let's go. It's here. And let's look at past winners real quick. The first winner of this whole thing was in 1982, the Division I basketball March Madness tournament, women's basketball. I'm talking about NCAA. Louisiana Tech was the winner of that one. Then USC. Which USC? University of Southern California, Old Dominion, Texas. Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot about Tennessee. Tennessee is also up there. Tennessee, Louisiana Tech, Tennessee, Stanford, Texas Tech, North Carolina, Connecticut. Connecticut won their first championship against Tennessee in 1995. And they played that at Target Center. That crowd must have loved that game. Solid, bro. Then Tennessee won for the next 3 years. Okay. Purdue, then Connecticut, Notre Dame, Connecticut, Baylor, Maryland. Maryland has produced some good talent. It's like an every once in a while kind of thing, I feel. Big Ten isn't really necessarily the greatest producer of talent within the WNBA, in my opinion. If you want to look for talent, you either look within the Big East or within the Pac-12, sometimes in the SEC, not so much in the ACC. I don't think so, at least. But again, that's just me. Where did I leave off? Then it goes Tennessee, Connecticut, Texas A&M, Baylor. Then we have the Connecticut 4 years in a row. then South Carolina, Notre Dame, and Baylor. Solid, bro. So the school with the most championships is 11, and you guessed it, it's UConn. And then after that, it's 8 for Tennessee, 3 for Baylor, 2 for Louisiana Tech, 2 for Notre Dame, 2 for Stanford, 2 for USC, 1 for Maryland, 1 for North Carolina, 1 for Old Dominion, 1 for Purdue, 1 for South Carolina, 1 for Texas, 1 for Texas A&M, and 1 for Texas Tech. And the most for a coach in history, guess who has won all of the UConn national championships? It's the coach, everyone, whose name I cannot pronounce. His name is Gino. I don't know how to say his last name. If I butcher it, will people come after me? I'm not even going to try, but Coach Gino won 11 championships. Then we have the legendary Pat Summitt from Tennessee with 8. Kim Mulkey from Baylor winning all 3 of those. Muffet McGraw won the 2 while she was there. Linda Sharp with USC and Tara Van Derver at Van Dever. Who knows? At Stanford, who I believe broke the record. She passed Pat Summitt for most wins in women's college basketball history on December 15, 2020. I believe that this year that Stanford is going to get the number 1 seed. They are going to win the Pac-12 championship against Oregon. I think the 4 number 1 seeds this year is going to be Stanford, UConn, South Carolina, and what's another good one? What would be another school for that? I don't know that much about college basketball for this year. I do follow it a bit on definitely Louisville. It's going to be South Carolina, Connecticut, Louisville, and Stanford. Those are going to be the 4 number 1 seeds. NC State is going to be a 2 seed, I think, along with Baylor, UCLA, and Maryland. I think Texas A&M is going to be a 3 seed with Oregon, Michigan, and South Florida. We got a lot of schools ranked here that I didn't think would be ranked at all. I see DePaul and Northwestern are hanging on. Northwestern at 21, DePaul at 22. So that's good for this state at least. Got some teams represented. Speaking of Northwestern, I watched them play a game 2 years ago against Purdue, and I was amazed by the fact that no one was talking about this school. I don't really, again, like I said, I don't really follow women's college basketball this year. Just really haven't had the time to sit down and watch a game. But I follow the team on social media, and they are really good. They've been good for the past few years, and I'm surprised that no one has been paying attention to them. I told my mom after the game, they were unranked at the time, and I was like, I'm really surprised that they aren't ranked, that no one is talking about them. They are going to shock some people when they get put into that top 25, and look at where they're at right now. They're at number 21, and that is really good for that team. Even though they lost that game to Purdue, Lindsey Pullum is going to be a really good guard in the WNBA. She is just fantastic for Northwestern. Northwestern has so many good players. Their team is just straight up phenomenal, and I can't wait to see how far they go in the tournament this year, which is being hosted in the great state of Texas. I don't know if it is a great state, though. I've never been there. But I am really happy that Northwestern is finally being shown some love. I'm not like a Northwestern fan. If anything, I'm a big UConn fan. I do like to watch Oregon. I do like to root against South Carolina and Baylor, of course. And I'm going to sit down and watch this tournament. I don't really care about the men's tournament anymore. Maybe if there's like an Illinois team in there or something. Well, Illinois is going to be in that for sure. But I hope another Illinois team is in it so I can root for them. I hope Loyola gets in the tournament again for the men's side. But I can't wait to see how this tournament goes. I was very upset that last year it didn't happen because we could have possibly seen the matchup of what is his name? Kelly Graves' Oregon team taking on Dawn Staley's South Carolina team. Last year, UConn would have not made the championship game like they didn't make it 2 years ago. And because there's just so many good teams back then and the players that were still there. But following, signings and people declaring for the draft, obviously people are going to decide what they want to do. I think UConn has the right players now to finally win a championship again. But don't forget about South Carolina, Louisville, NC State, and Stanford. Also, keep your eye out for Arizona, Oregon, and Arkansas because they have been very surprising this year for me. We could have a Final Four of Stanford and Connecticut and possibly Louisville and South Carolina, or you can switch those wherever you want. I think we could be seeing some upsets here. I think Arizona especially has the power to do so many great things within the tournament, but that's just me. So, look, we're at the 15-minute mark. So, women's basketball, that's great, I'm kidding, guys. I love talking about this stuff. Finally getting to sit down and look at some rankings and see what is happening in the world of women's college basketball. Thank you so much for taking the time today to listen about what's happening in the world of women's college basketball. I will hopefully get to watch some games soon. I wish they televised more, and I wish, I have Xfinity at home, and it bothers me that when you press the C button on your remote, it shows you all the sports that is happening at the moment, like what channel it's on and whatever. It's got all the men's sports on it, and I hate it. Especially when it's NWSL season, and you're looking for the channel that the Red Stars are on, but it doesn't show you on that sports guide. That sucks. I hate it. I wish they would include everything, I do like the guide for when it's Olympics time because I will sit and watch the Olympics all day. All day I will be glued to the TV. But I wish they added women's sports. Also, for the first time in Fox Sports history, they showed a women's basketball game on there. It was UConn and DePaul. I unfortunately wasn't able to sit down and watch that game, but the fact that it took until 2021 for them to put women's basketball on Fox Sports is disappointing. I don't know what else to say, but that's it. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Women's Sports Matter podcast. Again, my name is Gianna Castro, and I'm the host of this whole thing. If you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Okay, that would be fan-flippin-tastic if you did that. Okay? So, you can also follow me on Twitter. All you gotta do is search up the @WSM podcast, and you can follow me there. I'm also on Instagram. All you gotta do is look up Women's Sports Matter. You can also find me on YouTube. You want to subscribe to my YouTube channel? It's the Women's Sports Matter podcast. Sounds fun, right? I know, it's literally such a blast to do an outro. Again, we are still in a pandemic, even though President Biden is going to be doing 100 million vaccines in 100 days. It's still important to wear a mask, even if you did get the vaccine. Remember, just because you get the vaccine doesn't mean COVID can still, be attached to your body. Okay, you can still spread COVID to other people. That's why we still all need to wear a mask until we are told it's okay not to. That's probably going to be a while. We probably have to wait for the summer for that to actually happen. But I'm very hopeful, and I trust what's happening in the White House. But like I always say at the end of every episode, wear a mask, wash your hands, social distance when you can. So that's going to be it from me. Again, I have links down below for stuff regarding Black History Month if you want to take a look at that. There's some interesting stuff that I read, and I linked it down below in the description of this episode, so check that out. If you want to look at other episodes, why don't you do that? I have good ones. Some of them are good. I'm wasting time now. Again, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Women's Sports Matter podcast. I really appreciate it. Again, my name is Gianna Castro, and I will see you again on Thursday. That's all, folks. See you next time. Bye.